So when I came to Mother McAuley, I went to St. Killian. I went to Catholic school from the time I was in kindergarten to the time I graduated from college, right? I stayed in Catholic schools and in uniform so much. When I went to Loyola and I didn't have to wear a uniform, I had a pair of pants I wore on Monday, a pair of pants I wore on Tuesday, a pair of pants I wore on Wednesday, right? So when I first wanted to come to Mother McAuley from St. Killian, my grades, I was not like, you know, a magna cum laude, to say the least. And they were thinking that I didn't have the skills to get in Mother McAuley. And right before I took the entrance exam, Sister Lorena from St. Killian said, I'm gonna let you take the test at Mother McAuley, but you gotta do everything you need to do to get into school. So I went and took the entrance exam, I passed the entrance exam, and about 2 months later, Stephanie, if I'm not mistaken, I became Catholic. Because I just needed to throw everything at what I needed to do to get into school, right? So I come to this school and I started, everything was in fundamentals because I just didn't do that well. So I started in fundamental algebra. Do you all still take algebra? Yeah, I was in fundamentals algebra. So back then, I think we only had to take 2 years of math. I took 4. I live a life of suffrage. So I took a fundamentals algebra, then geometry. Then I had the audacity to take trigonometry, right? I was just gonna punish myself, right? So those weren't my favorite classes, but they stand out. And my lesson there was, I'm gonna keep doing this till I get it right. I'm just gonna keep trying. I'm gonna conquer math, never conquer math, but I wanted to continue to do that. So I remember those math classes because they were so hard. When I was walking over with Madam President, I walked past the music room. How many of you all have taken music? I walked past the music room and I was telling her that we had a music teacher who was in love with this group called the Carpenters. You all ever heard of the Carpenters? Rainy days and Mondays always get me down. We sang this every day, every Monday. We did the Carpenters music, but it was fun. She let us dance and we just explored. I remember that. I remember Latin class. I remember, you know what I remember the most? My lunchroom class table, my table. You all sit in the same table every time y'all go to lunch? Still? Yeah, we had a famous table in the lunchroom that was just fun, but not one particular class or one particular instance, but Spanish was another one. I think I took 3 or 4 years of Spanish. I can barely say hola. It just didn't stick, but it just offered so much, you know, it just really offered so much.
So going back to your book, what was the inspiration behind writing a book rather than just like speaking to a person?
Okay, that's a great question. So this book was born out of a speech I made. So Mary told you that I've been in Chicago all of my life. I've only been out of this town for 30 straight days one time. I went away to college here. At Loyola, I stayed on campus, right? And so because of that, I'm very civically involved. I'm on a lot of boards. I'm on and that's something that we learn and start here, that you all get involved. And the reason that I've gotten involved across all spectrums of Chicago is because it helps my business. It serves my business. So a lot of times when you all join organizations, you're there to network and it will help you in other parts of your life. But anyway, what was your question? Why did I write that? Right. So I was asked to make a speech to an organization called NABO, which is the National Association of Women Business Owners. And it was downtown in the Four Seasons. I must tell you, I was very intimidated because these were high-powered women, and I never made a speech in a room like that, where there are like 3,000 women, right? So I made up the speech Elizabeth called The Girlfriend's Guide to Closing the Deal. I just made it up, right? Because I'm in broadcasting. And what I thought I wanted to deliver to the room was my experience as a woman in business and how it resonated with other women. And so I methodically went about telling a very girlfriendish style, I made a girlfriendish style speech. But it captivated the room. I mean, you know, people just sat there and watched. And I would say things about me sometimes being the only woman at the table with a boardroom full of men, sometimes the only African American, and how that felt, and how I found my voice there, and how I felt empowered. And you could hear the women in the room, Elizabeth, go, because they'd been there, and they knew that they experienced that, right? Afterwards, women stood in line for 2.5 hours to talk to me, and they kept saying, you gotta write a book, you gotta write a book. And so people think that because I'm in broadcasting that the book is all about broadcasting. It is not. It is really about us, women, finding equity in every place we are, every place we are. And I have had to learn that, and was very young. My dad made me president of our company. I was 30 years old. And that was young to be the head of a broadcasting company in Chicago, which is the 3rd largest market. So I was very intimidated. And I would often sit in rooms with high-powered men, mostly, and I would sit there and I would not contribute. I didn't feel comfortable to add anything because I didn't think they would respect anything I had to say. And what I realized as I got older was I was just as smart as they were then. I really was, and I should have spoke up. And that's what made me, it was the impetus to me writing this book, so that you all can find your voice very early. You will sit in places and wonder, wow, how did I get here, right? And be a little intimidated by maybe your surroundings, but I want you to be all in. And so that is what started me writing.
It was like one of your quotes in your book. You said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent."
That's right. That's right. Nobody. And who said that was Eleanor Roosevelt, who was a very progressive first lady, way back when, like back in the 40s, and it stays with me. And I say that oftentimes, even now, when I go in rooms that I might feel lonely in. I guess that's the best way to explain it. I may feel lonely in, I let it go in my head. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. And I open that door, hello fellas.
When you said you just like go into rooms and you have to sit with very intimidating people, and sometimes in your book you mentioned that sometimes the men will steal your ideas.
Oh.
What do you say back, or how do you deal with that?
You ever do that? You ever like holding your hand up in class and you know you got the answer and then calling somebody else and they get their answer, right? It's that same kind of feeling, right? But in the corporate world, as you go on into your careers, you will find that as women, we will say things and they will land, but are people listening? Are they listening like they are listening to the other guys maybe in the room, right? And so I have noticed over the years where I have made really great points, right? And Bob or Jim or Charles or somebody will say the same thing a different way. And for the rest of the conversation is Bob, Jim's, or Charles, like Bob said, like Charles said, right? And I get so frustrated with that, right? And so what I've learned to do is, one of my friends said, I feed them cyanide with sugar. Because you don't want to get in a position where they don't want you at the table. Because there's so much to learn at the table, right? So I'll just, maybe say, when I made the remark, I might, affirm it. When I made the remark about, so I could take my power back from Charles and Jim and whatever that other guy named, right? So it is a way to get through that. But also, Elizabeth, what becomes important, because women are often in the minority at powerful tables. It's just not a lot of us. We get away with that in Mother McAuley because that's all we see, right? But in the real world, in business, we are often in the minority. And there may be other women in the room, right, who have great thoughts and are great thought leaders and may not have the support. So, for instance, if we're sitting here and you made a remark and we were in a room full of men and they didn't seem to hear you, I talk about in the book what this little thing that we use ladies call the step and repeat. And so if Elizabeth says something, and when I began to say something, I have to affirm Elizabeth. Well, like Elizabeth said, because it's the repetition of our voices that makes us get heard, oftentimes in the business setting. So always take an opportunity to promote another woman that's in the room, to affirm what she said, if you agree with it, only if you agree with it, right? But so that she too is acknowledged for her contribution.
Could you talk to us about how you network with others and how others network with you?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So networking is the most important thing you will do on your growth, in your growth, whether it's in business, no matter where you are, because it becomes important that people remember you, right? And when you talk to important people, you have to assume that everybody wants to talk to an important person, right? So how do they remember you? What are the steps to make them remember you? And I think one of the things that we make a mistake on is when we get an opportunity to talk to someone about ourselves, we talk about ourselves, right, in that first encounter. So I talk about effective networking. And so effective networking is a number of things. Number one, you have to decide where best your time is spent. So for instance, if you are applying for a college, I'm going to come in this room right now. If you are applying for a college and you find out that the president of that college is going to be somewhere that you can get to, I would go. That's effective networking. And effective networking says you're not just in the room, but that you find a way to engage this person. See, some people like to go to events and say they're networking and they're just there. They want to eat the chicken and sit around, oh, I met. No. Effective networking is that you decide who in this room can advance me, that gives me an opportunity to move forward, right? So when you meet that person, you introduce themselves, and I know you all practice this here. Hello, I'm Elizabeth. I'm a Mighty Mac. I'm from Mother McAuley, you get through. But the most important thing that you can do in networking, after you decide who that person is that you really want to network with, and you all have an advantage we didn't have. You know what that is? The phone. You can Google somebody right there. You can go on LinkedIn, you can find out something. People like people who know something about them. So when you are effectively networking, the most important tool you can use is to spend that first meeting talking about the person that you're meeting with, who can make a difference in your life. And so if you know that the president of this college is going to be somewhere, and you Google them, because you want to do your homework, you want to find out where they went to school. Maybe they went to school with your mom and dad. Maybe you grew up in the same neighborhood, or you went to the same Catholic church, or somewhere where your lives may connect. Maybe you like the same sporting event, right? And so when you meet that person, and you make that introduction of who you are, the way to capture them is to meet them where they are. I understand you love to fish. I do too. My parents take me. Immediately they are drawn into you, right? They're listening. You have captivated them. The most important thing in networking is that you create a scenario where you will meet them again. Because you can't close the deal most often the first time you meet them. You usually close the deal the second time. But you want to give them something to remember you by. And so those are my important points right off the top of networking. Networking is so incredibly important, and that you take advantage of every room you're in, everyone.
So in your book, you go into some detail about business partners and selecting the right business partner. I feel like that has to do with some networking, and can you explain to us what are some key factors in picking a great partner, team member, or even roommate?
Right. So, everybody's not meant to be your business partner. Your best friend may not be your best business partner. Think about it. You may like one another. My best friend since first grade is sitting there, Stephanie. We went from first grade through high school. I don't want to be in business with Stephanie. I love her a lot, but we would probably never be in business. So you have to find people who are almost like the opposite of you. Is that weird? Like if you've got two alpha girls who love to to explore and be in the world, that may not be the best business partner. I would find somebody who your core values may be the same, how you feel about investing and money may be the same, but those things that grow the business. So you and I go into business together, Elizabeth. I have this outgoing personality, and you may not have that. You may be the person who runs the office, who stays in, who really handles the operations. You've got to find out where who's the best fit. And then here's the other thing, ladies. All businesses aren't meant to have partners. Sometimes you have to go along. And what I realize is that a lot of people go into business with partners because they think they need them. It may be financial. It may be that you don't feel like you have the wherewithal to do the business by yourself. And so you really have to understand who you are as a person as you set out to start a business, right? And what is your best fit? My father and his partner were in business together, and they did not like each other. And they stayed in court for at least 10 years fighting over the business, which is how I ended up with it. There was a female judge who, after many years of the case being in court, right? And she was a young lady who got on the bench, and she wasn't in our proceedings 2 times, and she said, why don't you just sell the company to Melody? And that's how I ended up getting the business. I don't want a partner because of what I saw my dad go through. Really, so you have to, it's not a right or wrong, you just have to know your DNA, your business DNA.
When your father and his partner were not always agreeing, I know you were still in the company, what did you do during that time so that I could fix your...
I stayed in integrity. I didn't get in the middle. As a matter of fact, my daddy's partner taught me the business. It wasn't my daddy who taught me the business, it was his partner. And although they did not like each other, he was very fond of me. And I honored him and respected him because I was there to do one thing, that was to learn and to grow and to pay my car note. But, you have to be in integrity, and always do the right thing. Just in business, always do the right things. And I don't know how many of you all have family businesses. That can be tough with brothers and sisters, but always stay the course and do the right thing.
That was another question. How did you, with your family, all your brothers and sisters, how did you decide that you wanted to do it? Would you feel more pressure on yourself if you did take over the business?
Well, I did not want to take over the business. That's just it. I did not want to take over the business. I wanted to be a television journalist. And my father decided that he would not pay for college for me to become a journalist. He wanted me to be a lawyer, which is how I ended up with a criminal justice degree and never used it. So that's the other thing, ladies. If my takeaway today, do not settle. Do not settle. I settled for a degree I would probably never use because he was trying to force me to be an attorney, right? So I have 3 other siblings. Nobody is in the business but me. My sister lives in Florida. My brother is actually at home taking care of my parents. And my other sister's an attorney. He finally got an attorney. It just wasn't this one, right? And so I'm so glad that it did lead me back, though, to the business. Because I still ended up doing television when I want to, and, God will often give you, and Tiffany and I talk about this, God will give you your will, His way. Your will, His way, right? And so it wasn't the television career that I thought it would be, but we just got a digital TV station at Midway, and I do a lot of local TV, for the book or whatever else I need to go on for if they want an opinion. So, I'm pleased with my trajectory and how it worked out.
You've been dedicated to your business for so long. Could you tell everyone about how you worked there when you were just our age and
Oh, wow.
growing up from there?
So, I grew up on the south side of Chicago, and I began hanging out with a pretty rough group. I was at Mother McAuley, but I was hanging out with a pretty rough group in my neighborhood. And my parents did not approve of my friends. They just didn't. My mother could not figure out what I could possibly have in common with some of these people. You all probably experience this now yourselves, right? And so my dad, what he did, because my mother and I could not find any peace. So my dad would take me to the radio station every Saturday night. Remember this, Stephanie? Every Saturday night. From the time I was 14 until I was 19, I did a Saturday night show. I had my own radio show. Now that's a good distraction, right? But he was doing it to keep me off the streets. And I'm so glad that he did. I developed a work ethic. I mean, I went to work on Christmas, if it was on a Saturday. I went on New Year's Eve, if it was on a Saturday. He gave me no breaks, right? But that is what began to, I became acclimated with that kind of discipline where, I mean, when it snows now, I have 43 employees. I do not understand people who don't come to work because it snowed. The blizzard of 79, my mother made me come to Mother McAuley. I didn't get here until 11:30. And it was only 25 students out of 2,000. But my mother made me come. And so it's those kind of things that kind of shape, who you are and your beliefs, right? And the disciplines that you have in your life. And so that's how it all got started. And all of my friends who I grew up with, we're still friends. Most of them did just what my mother said they would do. But I'm still friends with them. When I go to the neighborhood, we'll get together when some of them are in town. But by far, I understand now what they were trying to tell me and teach me.
Could you explain to us what you do on a regular basis at your radio station?
So, it's changing because think about it. I've worked at the same company since I was 14, 15 years old, right? I learned everything back then when I was there. And so for me now to be the chairman of the company, it's really changed. Writing this book has given me the biggest joy because it's gotten me out of the day-to-day. But I've hired some really incredible people to help run the place. So what I'm doing right now in my life, Elizabeth, is probably more about giving back to the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois than it is about running a radio station, because it's kind of on autopilot. I talk about in the book about being a visionary and a paradigm builder. And as a CEO, and as some of you all will ascend up your ladders and own your businesses or become presidents of companies, the most important thing for us is vision. Mary and I talked about that as we walked through the halls. She is a person of vision. And I watched it unfold out, and she explained, the things that she's done since that's what presidents do. Paradigm builders are people who work for the president. They are really the workers, right? And so I'm able, because I'm at that point and I've set my vision for it. I do a lot of board work. So I'm on a lot of boards in the city of Chicago. And one of the reasons why I do that, it all comes back to my business because I meet some really cool people who partner with me, right? So I'm just at that point in my life where it's not so much about the work day to day. I've hired some really smart people who can do that so that I can come back here and spend time with you all and do other things and really feed my soul.
On the boards now, do you ever feel inferior to them?
Oh, not anymore. They're like, oh my God, here comes Melanie. No, and what I found out is that when you really walk into who you are authentically, they need you on the board. Ladies, they need us at the table. We bring a unique and different perspective. When I walked in here today, I was actually on a conference call I'm on the board of Choose Chicago, which is the tourism board for the city of Chicago. And you all know that 58 million people come to Chicago every year for business and for conventions and things like that, right? And so we're responsible for that. So I was listening on that because as a transition from different mayors, things happen, right? And so I'll tell you something else. I got on something, remember I told you about algebra? guess what I lean towards when I get on these boards? Finance. Is that crazy? I lean towards finance because, as always, I've been most intimidated by it. But you know what's on finance committee? Very smart people who are looking for other smart people. And that is where your networking comes in. And so when they see me contribute and I'm their partner, they'll say, you know what, when they think about boards, we should call Melody Spann Cooper. She is very insightful, and she brings another level of intel that we may have missed. And that's how I've networked and gotten on so many of these boards. And so I want you all to start that early in your careers. You may be on some now, but start at advisory boards and make a name for yourself. Because it is those people on those boards that will make recommendations for you to just continue to ascend wherever you are. And they provide a great amount of resources for you, right? Because there are things that you'll need, right? And you want to know that, and they'll help you. They will help you.
So you successfully set some boundaries in a room, but how can do you have any ideas for us girls who are maybe more nervous to set our own boundaries?
So I have something in the book that says make 30 the new 50, right? Make 30 the new 50. We can bring it down some. Make 18 the new 50. And what do I mean by that? Every person you encounter is human. Every one of them. I don't care how smart they are. I don't care who they are. It all starts with a human being. And so when you are at the table with them or in the room with them, you are just as important as they are. And so when you have something that you need to ask, add, want to know, need them to do for you, I want you to speak up. Because you have the DNA. McAuley gives you that. Let me tell you, I can go, we were talking about that as I was waiting to meet with you all. It is something about McAuley girls, like we feel a great sense of pride because we come from this school. I know I did. And so when I tell people I'm from Mother McAuley, absolutely. It's a sense of confidence that goes along with that. It's a sense of confidence coming out of Loyola. College, you will study many things, but do you know why you're really going to college? To improve on your critical thinking skills. And so when you do that, you are then allowed to sit at any table and ask anything. You are allowed to do that now. So I want you to strengthen that muscle right now. Right now. Every time you sit in a room, it's important that you listen because that's where you learn. But at any time, if you are confused, if you have a question, if you think you can add, do it. And don't wait till you get 40 and 35 or what are they going to think? Listen, men never think about what somebody is going to think about what they're thinking. I've sat in rooms when I know men talk just to hear themselves talk or just to stand out, right? Or just to stand out. I want you to build that muscle. I don't want you to just talk to be talking now, but when you do have something to add or ask, I want you to feel confident enough to do it right where you are right now.
Does anyone in the audience have any questions?
In your book, after each chapter, you did like what you should take away from that chapter. Where did you get the idea to do that, and like who taught you to be like feministic and like motivated to motivate younger girls?
Oh wow, I'm a feminist, really? No. I think because of what's your name?
Ellen.
Alan. I think because of my experience of being in rooms where I know I should have added and I didn't, right? And so my confidence came from building that muscle. It really did. And I'm gonna tell you, when you began to walk in it, it's free. You ever had a secret that you know and you told it and you just felt like, oh, I'm so glad I did that. It's that same kind of phenomenon, right? So you're sitting at a table and you want to add and you add. And oftentimes what will happen is you won't get the response that you think you should get, any affirmative. Like you'll want somebody to say yeah or agree with you. or nod their head, oftentimes you won't get that, right? So be prepared for that. But when you feel that thing inside of you that says, speak up, or I have something to add here, that's when you know that you have to do it. Or sometimes if you are uncertain about something that someone says, that's the other thing. You ever read and you're not sure that you caught it, like, I'm not sure that I really got that. And it took me a while before I get up to say, you know what, can you say that again? Can you explain that a little further? It's very empowering, right? So always be okay to do that, because you have to own who you are. I wish women would be more like men in that. Think about that. I use an example in the book. Like, we'll want to run for a political office. And we'll start asking, like, I'll ask Jill, what do you think? I'm thinking about running for Congress. I'm thinking about running for Congress. Men never talk about what they're thinking about doing. What do they say? I'm running for Congress. You're running for Congress, right? We're thinking, and then lo and behold, he runs for Congress, and he becomes a congressman. And so that's the space in which we have to start occupying and owning, and our own feelings, because they're there, right? We just have to really walk into them. Did I explain that well?
Does anyone else have any questions?
When you talk about networking, how do you make sure that the people you're networking with remember you?
Okay, so that's, I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Sasha?
Sasha. So Sasha, for instance, we're coming here today, I'm giving an example. I own radio stations, and I'm in the media, right? And you might want an intern at NBC, right? And maybe I'm the closest thing that you'll get to that's in the media business, right? And so you find out that this young lady who went, I don't know how young I am anymore, but let's go with it. That this young lady is coming back to Mother McAuley, and she's in the media. And I want this intern at NBC. Let me Google and learn something about her, right? And so I come here today, and after this, you come up to me and you say, Melody, I'm Sasha, and I understand that you interned at NBC5. How was that experience? And I'm going to light up and say, Sasha, it was the time of my life. Oh my God, I met so many people who changed my life, and Art Norman helped me do this. And then you're going to go on to say, you know what, I would love to intern at NBC. Can you help me? You're a mighty man. I got to help you, right? So that is effective networking. It's using that best use of that 30 seconds that you have with me, right? And then you're going to say, Melody, how do I get in touch with you? Can I have, now when you get real bold, some people are really, can I have your cell number? Right? And then maybe I'll give you my cell number. I'll say, hey, Siobhan is here. She's my assistant. Siobhan, make sure you connect with Sasha. And then I may say something like this, Sasha, and I'll get in touch. Watch when people say they'll get in touch. Probably will never happen. Because after all, you want something from me, right? And in the course of my busy life, I may not remember that. So it is just as important that if you give your number to Siobhan, that you get a number to reach me, even if I didn't give you my cell number, right? And then you wait for maybe 4 or 5 days, because you haven't heard from me as Siobhan, and you follow up. It's Sasha. I'm calling because I was wondering if Melody could have that conversation about NBC. And then I'm going to get on the phone with you, and I'm going to connect you to my people at NBC, because I don't have time to keep talking to you, Sasha, right? And then you're going to close that deal, and I'm going to follow you and make sure that you get to NBC. That's how you close the deal, ladies. That's it, right? And then you're going to go to NBC as a mighty Mac and blow the roof off the place and become the next Allison Rosati. Well, or whatever it is, the producer or whatever it is. But that's great networking. That makes sense to you?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Any other questions? Martina?
So you give a lot of advice on how to overcome obstacles
Yeah. For people who are shy
Yeah.
and intimidated, what are the best steps? Can I share something with you? I'm actually shy. You can tell? You cannot, I know. I'm actually shy. And I think my business has made me go out. But, you know, like I'm never on my own radio stations, right? So I'm not the first person who'll step up and do things. What I will encourage you to do is to talk to yourself, and this is crazy, but talk to yourself in the mirror. Find your voice in the mirror. Put yourself in different scenarios in the mirror. You know how we're in our heads a lot of times about different things? What would I do if this person comes up? And as you begin to strengthen that muscle, read out loud. Read out loud to help you find your voice. The mirror, read out loud, engage. My husband is very shy, right? And I often ask him, why don't you talk more? He says, because I'm listening, right? But then he'll want to talk to me about the things that he should have said, right? And I'm like, I don't want to hear it though. I mean, I talk to you all the time, you know. So practice that. Practice, I'm going to add one thing today. If I go out into this event, I'm going to add one thing, and once you start doing that, it will free you. You will find you'll become more comfortable. Because you have nothing to be shy about. You're beautiful, you're intelligent. If you got in this school, you are intelligent. And it's practicing that you need to do.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Introduce yourself.
Class of 82.
Yes, I'm also a class of 82. But Melody, when you hear the term of the song, Fight Like a Girl, what do you think of when you hear that term, Fight Like a Girl?
When?
In business settings.
When?
All the time, anywhere.
I think of winning. I would fight like a
Oh,
girl.
you said when. I thought you were
I
asking me when.
No, I think of winning. Fight like a girl, I think about winning.
Yes.
I think about winning. We fight like girls. We are there to win. Listen, Jill, one of my young ladies who works with me, Elizabeth, she came out of pharmaceuticals, right? And she is head of my corporate engagement. And she said, her boss once told her on a meeting, I need you to dial down the pretty. Can you imagine that? In a corporate environment, somebody tells you to dial down the pretty. Dial down that which just shows up when you do. Dial it down, right? And I said, well, what did you say? She said, I didn't know what to say. I was totally caught off guard. Well, she's caught off guard for a number of reasons. It was her boss, so you really don't want to offend there, right? So I said, wow. I said, that's really deep. She said, what would you say? And I was telling Tiffany and them this the other day. I would have said, but it's my superpower. It is my superpower. So those things that often throw us off, ladies, we have to find the light in them. Fight like a girl. Girls show up to win, right? So that's what I think about. I never think about you're expecting me to put on some Vaseline or lose or cry, or I never think about things like that. I'm always a half full girl. Glass is never half empty for me, right? So that's the other thing I talk about in the book, is that I want you all to approach those things that confuse you from 33,000 feet. How many of you all, well, all of you, I'm sure, how many of you all have flown on an airplane? Yeah, awesome, right? When you get to 33,000 feet, Chicago looks kind of small, doesn't it? Looks kind of small. And so those things in our lives that confuse us, when we're looking at them across, they look kind of intimidating. But when you rise up and you look down at them, you can handle them. They're not so big after all. It's a big world out there, right? It's not so big after all.
Something in your book that you talked about was one time in a meeting, a man was just kind of dazing in the wall. You explained the group.
Oh yeah.
when you said that.
So I didn't mention his name in this book, but it's Drew. His name was Drew. And this man just does not, he does, to this day, I don't think he cares for me, and it's okay. That's the other thing. Everybody is not going to like you, nor should they. They just shouldn't. But that is not your problem. That is their problem. So Drew does not like me. And me being the only woman and the only African American at this table, when I do add, he's like, he physically, I mean, I can see him doing this. Oh, it pains him. And it used to intimidate me. So I would want to get quiet, or I'd start feeling insecure about what I was saying. And I talked to one of my personal advisors. I have a personal advisory board, and there are older women who are in business, and they will say a superpower kind of thing, right? And so she said, well, you probably need to bring it to his attention because maybe he's unaware he's doing it. I'm like, how can he be unaware he's doing it? And so I didn't do it the next meeting because he quieted me. He made me get quiet. I was intimidated. So maybe 4 or 5 months later, I was at a meeting and I started talking and adding, and he started fidgeting again. And I turned around and said, Drew, are you okay? And he stopped and he was like, he said, why would you ask that? I said, well, Drew, you're fidgeting, you're moving, and you're turning red. And I'm wondering if you're feeling okay. He said, oh no, Melody, no, I feel fine. Go ahead, finish your sentence. I said, thank you. Let me know if I need to get you anything, because I'm here to help, right? And then I turned back around and continued my thought. Ladies, I gained my power right then. I'm like, yes, I beat Drew. I defeated Drew, right? Now, what did that do? It put him on notice that I know what you're doing. And from then on, he's never done it again. He's just been conscious about it. I didn't punish him for it. I just took my power back because it made me uncomfortable, right? And so that is my story of, I didn't put his name in the book. It's Drew.
One of the last questions, could you state your 2 main points in the book that for anyone that hasn't read it, you would want to know?
Yeah. I was thinking about that earlier today. One of the things I want to leave with you all is in that first chapter. It really always resonates with young ladies. The chapter is called The Queen of Your Circle. The Queen of Your Circle. And this becomes important in your growth. You will have friends, and all of you do. And sometimes your friends will look up to you, maybe because you go to McAuley or because you have something that they really like, and maybe their lot in life is a little different from yours, right? And your friends will hang on to you because of what you bring to the party. I use an example of my father was a big record promoter in Chicago. We could go to all the concerts. And there was a group called the Jackson 5. I don't know if y'all remember heard of the Jackson 5. But the Jackson 5 was coming to town, and my dad got me box seats, and I could take 10 of my friends. And for 2 weeks, I could do anything in the neighborhood because everybody wanted to go to the concert, right? And so I was the queen of my circle. And so I went and I took all my girlfriends, and we just had a lovely time. And 3 days later, my mom said, we were talking, and I was telling her how much fun it was, and she said, Melody, you have become the queen of your circle. I said, what does that mean? She said, well, all of your girlfriends look up for you because you took them to see the Jackson 5. I said, okay. She said, well, I want you to find somebody who will take you to see the Beatles. I'm like, I really don't want to see the Beatles, Mom, and the Beatles are a little old. But what she was telling me was that when you are the queen of the circle, there's no growth for you. If you are the smartest girl in your group, if you've got all the connections and you've got everything and you are the go-to girl, you don't have to lose your friends, but you have to find another group of friends where you are not that popular, where you can learn from them, right? And it will help you to want more and to experience more, and it will give you another level of exposure that will help you grow. Life is about growth. even at my age, it is still about growth. And what I learned from other dynamic women who, you know, I'm around, who teach me, who help me want more, help me grow. And so the Queen of the Circle is something I want you all to just take inventory of your friends. Your friends say a lot about you, right? And your friends will oftentimes determine how far you're going to go. You don't ever have to lose them, but always explore other ways to friend up or meet other people who can help you grow. That's one thing. Another thing, we talked about 50 is the new 30. The other thing that I think I'd like to leave this group with is be a gracious giver. That's crazy, right? We talk about that in business. I want you to be a gracious giver. That becomes important for this school as you leave it, that you continue to give back. A professor at Wharton named Arthur Grant, I had the opportunity of going to a CEO workshop with him, and he wrote this book called The Givers, The Takers, and The Matchers. That's not the name of the book. I named the book in here. I can't remember the name of the book here, but it's about givers, matchers, and takers in business, right? And he breaks them down in those three, the art of giving. Is it the art of giving? I'm going to get back to you with the name of the book, but it's here. But he talks about three categories of business people. He talks about takers. Takers are people who are in it for themselves. Everything about them is about them. They're not interested in giving back. They're not interested in what you got to do. It's all about them. Give me, give me, give me, right? They close a business deal. They don't have to share with anybody else. It's all about them. Matchers are people who say, a quid pro quo. If you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back, right? And the majority of business people fall in the matchers category. But the most successful business people are givers. Givers. People who give up their time, people who give up their resources, and people who write checks to support other people's dreams, right? And so practice giving. Be a big giver. We learn about that in some churches. You've heard of tithing, where people actually tithe, right? They give like 10%. It's a lot in the black churches. But they tithe, right, in order to get back. But it becomes important that you never forget this place. When you go to college, you never forget this place. When you're able to help people, give. Just give. And don't expect anything back. And the reason I share that is because some people think when you give, you're losing something. No. The universe always opens up for givers. And I am convinced that I am still in business right now because I've been a big giver. Because there is no real reason why a 57-year-old radio station is still on the air and doing well. And I've been able to get another radio station and the TV and the digital kind of stuff, you know? Outside of the fact that I really pride myself and my team on giving. So those are the things I'd like to leave you all with.
Well, I would like to thank you for giving your time.
That was good.
And letting us all hear about your success. So